Welcome to the Funded Now What podcast with your host, Andrew Lee Miller. Brought to you by GrowthExpertz. You are in store for a chat about funding, marketing, startups, and all things growth.
All right, everybody. Thanks so much. And welcome back to the Funded Now What podcast. I'm super excited to have Max Marchione, the co-founder of Superpower.com, probably the best domain of any startup I think we've ever had here on the podcast. Max, thanks for joining me nice and early here in San Francisco. How you doing?
Thank you, Andrew. Excited to be here.
Yes. And if you didn't notice already from those few words, he's also from Australia. So you're going to be entertained by that awesome accent. But also, our first episode ever was an Australian founder, and we believe very much in Australian founders and the tech scene out there. But you moved to San Francisco recently or for this project or what? Tell us a little bit
I
about
moved
that.
here 2 years ago
Two
to
years
build in
ago?
healthcare, and
Okay.
then have been moving back and forth from between here and
Oh,
Sydney until 6 months ago, where we opened an office here, and now we're here for good. And to your point on Australian founders, I always joke that I want to create the index fund of Australians who move to the US. I think there are a lot of forces and incentives in Australia that say don't move or don't even expose you to the idea of moving. So there's a strong selection effect that happens when someone decides to move.
absolutely. This is the place to be when you're really serious about changing the world. And that's what I really tell people. And nobody is saying they're doing that more than Superpower. I mean, when you just go to the landing page you have, I mean, it's a massive, massive thing that you're doing. Tell everybody that's listening, this is the first time I think I didn't give an intro to the company first. Tell us about Superpower and what you're trying to do with this company.
Yeah, totally, man. So if we look at healthcare today, there are just so many challenges with it, right? If you try to go to your doctor and ask about sleep or hormones or gut health or preventing Alzheimer's or preventing heart attacks, you don't really get much of an answer. And what we've seen is there's this huge gap between the kind of healthcare that a Jeff Bezos has or a Mark Zuckerberg has or an Elon Musk has and what everyone else has, right? And they might pay $500,000 a year and they get the best doctors who are up to date with the latest research, who are on the edge of science, who can really help them solve their problems and prevent disease. But everyone else is kind of left with sick care. So the big idea for Superpower is how can we start to close that gap? How can we make the kind of healthcare that was once accessible only to a select few people accessible to absolutely everyone?
Wow. Okay. And how are you going to protect yourself from getting killed by like big pharma and stuff? No, I'm kidding. We don't need to go into that. But so that's a massive, massive, challenge to solve for. What did you do before this, Max?
I dabbled in lots of different areas. So I got into technology, rewinding to when I was really young. I got into technology when I was 12
Okay.
with a business that would host Minecraft servers and sell others the ability to host their own server. And I used to fancy myself like a little white hat hacker, gray hat hacker if it was
Okay,
hacking into my
great.
friend's little computer device. So that was really early. That was my first exposure to technology. Out of high school, I started working at a technology company as an early employee there, and we were trying to take the world's best education and productize that and give everyone access to, for example, the best teachers as a product. And we scaled quite quickly around the world to hundreds of thousands of users, and that was really my first foray into technology. And it was powerful to see really how a technology company works, particularly one solving such a complex problem when I was 17 years old.
Wow.
And after that, I ended up working at a couple of other technology companies, spent a little bit of time in finance at Goldman Sachs, and then started a small venture capital fund of my own with the idea of investing at the earliest stages into founders with really bold, visionary ideas. And we would often try to bet on people before the wider world thought they were investable.
Nice. Yeah, I was looking you up before and I saw you invested in pre-idea. So literally just backing the founders even before they know what they want to do. Is that what that means?
If we know the person, yes.
Yeah.
My view is if you know someone's really, really talented and really smart, and they're hell bent on starting something, and they have a general sense of what they're going to start, what you know for sure is they're going to start something.
They're
And
gonna
that
find
something
it.
is going to do on average reasonably well. And because that's true, And because you have asymmetric insights into the person, you can better them before they've done anything. Because before they've done anything and 6 months into doing the thing, it's basically the same if you know the person. The only difference is the average investor who doesn't know the person doesn't have the information required to allow them to bet so early.
Yeah, that makes sense. Love that. And I love the idea of, getting to know founders before you invest them, and, networking, and, it's all about who you know. And so that makes sense to me. Okay, let's talk a little bit about Superpower. The first thing that popped into my head was, how much did this domain cost? Are you comfortable to talk about that? I know it's got to be 100K just for the domain. Why call it Superpower?
I'll say this. I'll say we got a really amazing price on the domain, and we were offered 10 times more for it 6 months after we bought it.
Wow.
It was
That's a great
a
investment.
high ROIC investment.
Yeah.
Yeah.
When I
And
first
yeah,
saw it, I thought, oh, it's a greens blend drink mixture. Like, drink this, it'll be your superpower. I mean, every business would want to call themselves your superpower. I mean, it could be an AI chat bot, it could be anything. So it's an incredible URL. But why call it that for your predictive healthcare company? What's the strategy behind that?
it gets to the core belief we have in healthcare, which is that if you look at health in the past, what healthcare has always been is about, let's get you from sick, maybe like -5, to like just okay, maybe -1. And that's what's defined healthcare. Our view is where healthcare has to go is getting you from, say, like a -1 to a 10, right? We really, really believe that if you improve your health, you improve every other part of your life. You are happier, you're more energetic, you're smarter, you're better in your relationships. All of these things start to improve. So the idea of the domain is, what does it look like to actually create a healthcare company that doesn't just stand for dealing with sickness, but actually help someone like reach the peak version of themselves. So that's the first thing I'd say. The second thing I'd say is this idea of really creating a like viral brand, right? There's no real brand in healthcare. No one's walking around wearing One Medical t-shirts or like Forward Health t-shirts. Kim Kardashian isn't promoting Hims. No influencers really promoting Hims. What does it look like to create a brand that's more like Nike than a traditional healthcare brand? And I think healthcare needs that, because then you start to get people engaged in their health, caring about their health, feeling an emotional attachment to the community. And we think that is part of what health should be, right? There is this community aspect to health.
Wow. I love that. And I agree. I mean, what is the term people say? Health is wealth. And I, through my work over the last 20 years, am very wealth adjacent, and work with a lot of very successful men and women. And a lot of them forego focusing on their health to get to a certain level of success in business. And it's always the number one regret for a billionaire or a 9-figure entrepreneur that I meet. Like, that's the thing they work on after they have a ton of money. So if you focus on it from before, like, or when if you're someone listening to this and all you're focusing on is your business and your money, you'll be able to perform much better if you focus on your health also. And I agree with that, and it's definitely a priority for me. That's amazing. Can you talk us through a little bit about what the product you're going to be developing for this is? Is it software based, hardware based? You mentioned Forward, which is going to be like actual pods that you go into and stuff. I mean, like, how is this going to work? Is it algorithm based?
Yeah,
or
totally. No, the big idea is, what does it look like to replicate like the high-end concierge medicine clinic, but do all of that in the cloud, do all of that digitally? So people come to us and they start by getting a full picture of their health. We do a bunch of diagnostics. We really try to build out this database of the person and help someone understand all of the moving pieces in their health. The next part is, it's on us to show someone, here are all of the issues that we want to be monitoring. Here are issues you have today. Here are things we might want to prevent in the future. And here are several goals you might have, right? People often come to us and they say, my gut health has been playing up, or I've been losing my hair, or I'm putting on weight, or my hormones feel out of balance. I'm not really sure why, or I'm struggling with sleep. And people tell us these issues or goals they have. And then, as this almost like concierge medicine clinic for the everyday person, it's on us to help someone fix those problems. And if you look at the average clinic today, if you go to One Medical and ask about sleep or gut health or hormones, they kind of look at you funny, right? They don't really grapple with those problems and really understand all of the like frontier things you can do to improve your health. So what we do is someone comes into our digital clinic, we build out a full picture of their health with someone, we show them their issues and goals, then it's on us to actually be the port of call to help someone achieve those goals and really reach like peak health as we discussed.
Oh, got it. So you are actively already engaging in like trials with the product and stuff in the background?
Yeah, we're running a closed beta at the moment. We have lots of members going through and many more trying to go through
Awesome.
once we offboard them from the waitlist.
Yeah, it makes sense. And I'm sure the PR, so everybody listening, Max and his team just raised $6 million for this. Congratulations, pre-seed. And yeah, let's talk a little bit about that funding. I mean, that's part of the reason I'm super excited to have you on the podcast. You have a VC and investment background, but how hard was it to raise money for this? And, do you have any tips off the top of your head that really worked that you didn't expect to be beneficial for this process?
Yeah, totally. Um, I think that there's a lot of fundraising advice out there, so I'll try to simplify it to what I think are like the key and most important
Please.
things.
Yeah.
Um, I think the first thing is just having a really, really big idea, right? Like the easiest excuse you give a VC to pass is when the idea is too small.
Yeah.
And the irony of this is I think it's often easier to solve big problems or to target big problems than
Hmm.
small problems. And the reason why is let's say you're trying to, I don't know, let's say you're trying to build a really good keyboard, right? The best keyboard. Or let's say you're trying to build a better healthcare system. Uh, Two things. One's far easier than the other. Building a healthcare system is really complex. What do you do in the early stages? You do the exact same thing. You try to hire the best people, you try to raise money, you get people in a room, you deliver an initial product, you raise a bit of funding. But the catch is when you're trying to like actually build a better healthcare system, well, now you can raise money more easily because VCs see the opportunity to make a return. You attract talent because what you're doing is emotionally salient. You attract people who are bought into the mission because people want to help, people want to make this become a reality. So the first piece of advice I'd have is have a really big idea. And there'll be
Wow.
experts and insiders who try to talk you out of a big idea. You say it's too ambitious or start smaller or curb the ambition or it's impossible. And there's always going to be those people, but I still think it's really important to have a big idea. The second thing is the importance of emotion in a pitch. Um, I still think even though people hear this, people still try to use too much logic. At the end of the day, like if an investor feels something, if they understand the emotional problem you're solving, particularly in consumer, it makes it easier for them to buy into it. And in the earliest days, many will buy into it, even if they don't know whether you're going to become a $10 million company, they'll buy into it because they just believe in the vision and the mission. So that's the second
Wow.
thing, emotion. The third thing is have own insights, have opinions, right? Like if you're pitching the exact same thing as everyone else and you're not saying things in an opinionated way, well, what allows
Makes
me to believe that you're the one to do it before you have proof points, right? So the third thing is like have own insights and opinions and like your unique view and take on things. And then the final thing is often you have to start building, right? Like we didn't raise all of the money at once. We brought it in over the course of a year as we had more and more proof points, right? And particularly for first-time founders, it's really hard to know whether they're able to build until they start building. So having
Yeah.
proof points and starting building is really powerful. And that doesn't have to be traction. It doesn't have to be revenue. There are all sorts of proof points that you can get.
Wow. That was incredible amount of advice there, straight from the mouth of a founder that's just done it. And I want to hone in on the first thing you said about the big idea. I think you're right. I mean, even when I first looked at Superpower, I was like, oh, wow, this is too big of a problem. They're not going to be able to. No, I'm not saying I was negative, but my brain skews that way as someone who's paid to, be the devil's advocate and try and talk founders out of jumping off of a cliff. But I always say when I do public speaking, if you're not trying to solve a real problem that's really trying to help people, you're probably not going to be motivated enough to put in the 24 hours a day or a year of work just to raise funding. People give up, and that's part of the main reasons that startups fail is you give up on a product or a project through those iteration cycles. And if your mission is really big, then you're never going to give up. And I really love that. And my next question is how many calls over the year did it take to raise that $6 million? Just give us a rough estimate. I like to ask people every time.
Maybe 30 to 40 calls.
Oh, that's not
Um,
bad.
and yeah, it's hard to say, right? Because often you're chatting with a small angel who wants to
Yeah.
invest 10K. So
Yeah.
maybe more, but it's just hard to say. I think that a lot of the people we chatted with were interested. And I think it's because this is an emerging market. We have a team who have done things before. And I think investors at any given point in time identify certain categories and they try to make a bet within that category, right? This is what a lot of the best investors do. AI is an example. They'll identify AI, they'll identify subcategories, and they'll say in each of these subcategories, we want to find the company that we think is going to win. Now, one category, which is an emerging thesis for investors, is like longevity medicine or preventative medicine. And what that means is investors will be like, okay, who's the horse I want to back within this category? And I think they find a lot of what we're doing interesting, and we have a team that have deep technology backgrounds, particularly my co-founders, and that might not have been relevant in healthcare 5 years ago, but it is relevant now because language models are going to really, really change the way healthcare is delivered. And you have a lot of companies and people still reasoning from the past. They're like, oh, this is what worked 5 years ago. Let's just do this, but better. But I think the rate of change now is so fast that it's really hard to reason from the past because healthcare is no longer going to be a services problem. It's going to be like a deep informatics problem, a deep technology problem.
Yeah, that makes sense. That makes sense. Awesome. Super excited to see this go live. Do you have any idea when you're going to be launching this to the public or when other people can jump on this waiting list to check it out?
They can hop on the waiting list today. So superpower.com. We have around 25,000 people on it, but if you refer a friend, you'll move up quite quickly. So you can get in the waiting list today. We're slowly letting people off the wait list. So every month we're letting a couple hundred people off, and we're going to keep scaling that, letting more and more people off for the next 6 or so months. At which stage we'll open the floodgates.
Wow. Okay. So 25,000 people already on the waiting list. That's generally 2 to 5x higher than I see most pre-launch companies. How did you get that 25,000? It's just from word of mouth and PR. Did you put some budget behind promoting the pre-launch company or what? Let's talk some marketing stuff.
Yeah, totally. So the initial people who are on the wait list were there from really word of mouth. I think what we're doing resonates with a lot of people, and that meant that people would say, "Oh, you should check out Superpower," and we've had a landing page of sorts up for quite some time. So word of mouth initially. I think secondarily is social sharing. So in the product, there are several kind of assets or things that people can screenshot and share on Twitter, similar to how people used to share Robinhood portfolios, right? And we've seen many of our early customers like to screenshot parts of the app and share it on Twitter. And then the final way we have those early waitlist signups is the launch. We didn't put any budget behind it. We didn't put any staged PR behind it. I think it was largely me and my co-founders' personal brands reaching lots of people, and then the striking visual and verbal identity of the company resonating, building trust, getting people excited about what we're doing. That helps grow that wait list.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, everybody wants to find their superpower, so the name really, works there, I think. You mentioned that people are screenshotting and sharing stuff. Are you going to build that into the product? Usually that signifies to me that we should like make it even easier for people to one-click share stuff. Have you thought about, making that even easier for people?
Yeah, totally. So we think about a lot. We think about the screenshot ability of screens as a variable, definitely not the most important variable, of like a variable in informing the UI. And small things that can include are shareable buttons, potentially the Superpower logo, etc. So 100%.
Yeah, I mean, one of the major ways we increase like a K factor for a B2C product is finding that aha moment in the user experience when they want to share something and making that really easy for them. I mean, everybody wants to show how healthy they are and show off and, financial health, like on Robinhood, it's the same. So excited to see more of the product around that. But what are some other marketing challenges? I mean, pre-launch company, 25,000 people signed up. Do you have like a team member managing communications to those 25,000 people? Are you communicating with them regularly about product updates or when they're going to get in, or they're just sitting dormant in an email list?
Yeah, it's a great question. The challenge with waitlists is they go stale, right? Unless you engage the waitlist.
Right,
So
right.
so we're bringing someone in to start engaging members, non-members, people on the waitlist, because people need to understand us through multiple touch points if they're going
Right.
to trust us with health and with actually helping them achieve some of the goals they might have. So member engagement and public engagement is going to be really important. It
Hmm.
creates this sense of momentum as well, right? We in certain ways are inspired by companies like Arc Browser, by the browser company, where they would do these. They had a chief like storytelling officer, right? And that
Hmm.
person would maybe it wasn't a chief officer, but they had a
Yeah.
storytelling lead, and that person would be in charge of like telling the story through Twitter and YouTube and social media and creating this almost cultural zeitgeist around the company. So we
Hmm.
think a lot about how can we almost like capture the cultural zeitgeist on social media through the public storytelling we're doing, and that's something we're going to activate soon.
Nice. That actually really is a good company to look at for you because the total addressable market for a browser is very similar. Anyone, period. And that's why I think that's a good and relevant company for you to idolize because, anyone wants to get healthier and increase their longevity and live longer. And so it's very similar total addressable market. With that person, I think the email marketing point of it is quite small. It's, they probably need a weekly message. So creating a bunch of different types of content and promoting that or communicating with them via email. On the social media side, let's talk about that for a little bit, just to give you some insight into what I think you should do with that person and how they should focus before I let you go. Um, you know, if you're already trialing with a bunch of users, the best thing to do is to really get user feedback and highlight those users that are getting tremendous effects or responses or outcomes from the product already. Maybe 10% of the social media strategy would be talking about like features and product itself, because I think you've had this mystique of, with this cool name of not really giving too much details about it, and you've already got 25,000 people. So you don't really need to give away tons more info about the product. People are going to sign up anyway. I think you mentioned to me before we started recording that building community is really important. So I think focusing on the problems that you mentioned early on at the beginning of the call are really, really is going to be really impactful because, like you said, healthcare is really important. It's quite broken in this country or worldwide, even. I mean, I actually, as a digital nomad, I just moved back to San Francisco actually after 7 years of traveling. I had a global healthcare system. So depending on what would happen, I'd fly to different countries. And I never said this publicly on recording before, but I would often fly to England for major issues because you just walk in and everything's free from the NHS. That's flawed, and not everybody has the financial abilities to do that or the know-how. And so I think you're solving this massive problem that really will naturally make people want to share with other people that they care about. And that's really what I think will drive the most virality from social and build that community of people that are interested. And so I think probably I don't know if you're, even though you've raised a lot, probably it's one person, the community manager from an early stage. And you want some skills on copywriting and email, but really focusing on someone that understands social media content creation and being like you guys are the face of the company because there's obviously going to be a lot of opportunities for you to do public speaking, and that should be another thing. You mentioned that you have some personal brands, expanding on that and becoming an expert in the future of um, this space and the personalized healthcare. Actually, I didn't think about this until just now, but 8 or so years ago, I was head of marketing of a company that was doing something similar in the travel space. So we had some algorithms that personalized hotel and flight search, and we did not raise a large enough seed round, only under $3 million. So we pivoted to B2B rather than try to go B2C, which very costly. And I'm sure you're going to plan on the next round very shortly. You need a lot more than 6 million to go against like, billion-dollar healthcare companies. But when we were pivoting to B2B, we decided to make the company famous through personal brand marketing and content marketing. So writing white papers about the future of personalized healthcare and putting that out to the media, even pre-launch, is something that can develop a lot of really strong PR relationships and drive a lot of interest to the website, which then you have like a pop-up, download the full white paper, you build an email list of people that are potentially interested in the next round. That usually gets a lot of speaking gig opportunities. Max, come and speak at the Future of Healthcare conference, this and that. And that raises the profile of the company, makes the next round even easier as well. But you get these as seen in logos that go on the website, and it also helps conversions for the public, I think, as well. And just, healthcare is something really personal. People like, what's harder, to trust than your health with a company? You know what I mean? And so this new company, the URL helps, the branding helps, social media following helps, website design helps. These all send subconscious signals to users to trust a company, but those logos also do that. And so I think that that's probably something also you'd want this person to focus on, is go and get me interviews on podcasts, way cooler than just this startup marketing loser guy. But I mean, like targeted, the Future of Healthcare podcast, you should be on every single one already. And but having that person focus on those three things: email marketing, social media, and then PR is really what it is. So public speaking, podcast interviews, becoming an expert source to the media, Forbes, TechCrunch, all that is nothing more than monitoring a few websites and monitoring Google alerts. And they can easily do that in their spare time. How's that sound?
Yeah, man, there are a lot of great ideas in there. I love it.
Good, man. Good. I kind of spewed it all at you because that's kind of the way this conversation's been. I mean, you did that with the founder advice. I mean, the fundraising advice, and I don't even think I could keep up. People will probably have to listen multiple times. It was amazing value. What other marketing challenges have you felt or seen or envisioned in the future that I might be able to give some insight into before I let you go?
We are doing something which is really challenging, which is we're quite horizontal as a clinic. And the challenge with something horizontal is you have multiple value propositions versus a single, very well-defined value proposition, right? Contrast what we're doing to a hair loss company. It's so easy to say, like, what we do is hair loss drugs, right? We don't do something that simple because, okay, yeah, sure, we do hair loss, but that's like one of 100 different things we do as a digital clinic. So one thing we're grappling with as we go into starting to be more public in the coming months is this idea of what is the wedge or the way that we can help someone get into the ecosystem that is slightly more vertical and easy to understand. And then everything horizontal is slightly more behind closed doors and acts as a way to retain people versus acquire people.
Okay. So first of all, with the horizontal approach, that's really when you get this social media manager, you'll have weeks to have each kind of campaign for each thing. I mean, you can think of 100 different things from verticals from hair loss that if you're helping with all of these, they're different like stories or content initiatives. Even with SEO, like a blog post for top 10 ways to fight hair loss is just one vertical. And then obviously the number one is to sign up to Superpower. And the number two is to use like black garlic oil. I know some of those ways, they didn't work for me if you're watching video, but fly to Turkey, get a hair transplant is one of them that's been pitched to me. But I mean, so there are really awesome content opportunities to focus on each of those verticals, even though you are that holistic solution. And then, probably from a branding perspective, just envisioning the homepage of the site, it's your personalized healthcare solution for everything, but that everything word switches out to like each of the million different things that you can help with, and just explaining through the life cycle of the user experience that it's a one-stop shop for everything. I think makes it, and just owning that everything idea, like anything that's going wrong in your life or that you're feeling like is you're losing control of health wise, come to Superpower, and that should really be the message. We'll help with everything, and then you do marketing down the funnel with every single vertical in mind. Does that kind of make sense a little more?
Yeah, what becomes really interesting about having lots of different point solutions under one roof is now there are marketing opportunities and
Exactly.
co-branding opportunities and landing page opportunities for each specific vertical.
Exactly.
And I think that can be quite exciting because it can build this momentum of, okay, what's the Superpower protocol for X? Okay, cool. Superpower now dropped a new protocol for Y. So I totally agree with that.
Yeah, and I mean, once you have a huge domain like that with landing pages that are keyword specific for each thing and content going out for each thing and social media campaigns and user testimonials and YouTube shorts for each thing, it becomes Google's favorite site to recommend up at the top for everything. And the brand becomes well known and you already have very strong word of mouth. That just is going to be 100x. And, I had a great hair loss solution result when I worked with Superpower, and then someone else mentioned a chipped tooth or aching whatever, and I'm gonna refer to them. And so I think healthcare is definitely one of those things where people want to be really and technology, and you're both really the person who
Yeah, I
refers
think
that next thing.
a lot comes down to outcomes, right? And the key belief that like animates us as a company is we have seen a clinical model for all of these different conditions people have that is so much better than the default one people are accessing, right? Whether you're trying to prevent Alzheimer's or prevent cancer or fix hair loss or lose weight or fix your gut or improve your hormones, the like default approach to that we don't think is that good, right? The kind of medicine that your Jeff Bezos is getting is way better, way more
Yeah,
effective. And there are
yeah.
all of these protocols out there that are way more up to date with the latest science, but they haven't reached the mainstream yet.
Mm-hmm.
So we think that there's a real opportunity to start to drive outcomes through this more like frontier, more like science-backed, up-to-date clinical model.
Take my money. That what you just said needs to be in a awesomely produced video on your website. And I thought, it's cool with the like space-like background or whatever, but when you have such a big problem that you're solving, like you mentioned when you were giving the founder advice, the fundraising advice to focus on emotion, dude, I just felt that what you said, and that's not coming through on the site. And it's cool, word of mouth, you got 25,000, but I think that there isn't a person in the world that doesn't want to get access to Jeff Bezos's healthcare. I mean, although a lot of billionaires don't live very long at the end of the day, as long as you think, that I see. I mean, Steve Jobs is an example. I mean, but you mentioned when you were talking about him that you think he spends like 500K. I bet you it's more than 10 times that. I mean, what is it? Conor McGregor said he spends like no, it was LeBron. LeBron said he spends like $2 million a year on just like healthcare and his like health regimen. And that's like such a small percentage of his earnings, you know what I mean? And so I think it's probably Jeff Bezos. Also, I mean, looking at him, he's injecting all kinds of testosterone and all that. He's getting more and more jacked by the year. So he's definitely got access to stuff that the average person doesn't. But yeah, I mean, are you open to investing in video production early on as well? I think like with such an emotional, heart-grabbing message, I think that would be a smart thing. I mean, you speak so well about it as well. A lot of times I work with founding teams that are, product and engineering focused, and it's very difficult to get them to speak as eloquently about the dream that they're achieving as you. And so I think you should be leveraging that as well.
Yeah, we all later this year video I
Yeah.
think will be a really powerful channel.
Yeah, I mean, like later this year, maybe for social media, but like sooner rather than later on the website, because the media, it helps with converting everything, like with those media outreaches, the hiring, like you said, getting people involved in the mission when they can really understand it better. And I think like, it doesn't have to be wildly 100K highly produced. I mean, we're in San Francisco. There's people that do really awesome work even as a hobby. Um, Anyway, just a thought because that last message you said really resonated more than anything I read online before meeting with you. So I think like, if a photo tells 1,000 words, then a video is like 100,000. And so, play with that idea even on your own computer and like, oh yeah, that's pretty good. And then once you have a script in mind of what you're going to say, it's not very costly and the turnaround time is really easy. I mean, so many companies that don't raise money use like AI videos, and even that is better than nothing to get people to understand what's really coming from this company. And that's going to boost that 25K to 100K. And the more pre-launch people you got interested, the day you launch, You mentioned Robinhood. I can't remember if we were recording or if it was before the recording, but I was in San Francisco when they were launching, and they did like an incentivized waiting list where the more people you refer, the more you move up, and that got to 600K on the waiting list because you had a unique URL that you have to go and then push out to a bunch of people. And if you're looking at 6 more months of waiting list, those 25,000 people could become little marketing agents for you and turn that to 10x, 20x. So maybe something to think about there as well. And that's just a quick weekend hackathon project for the team, I think.
100% agree, man. Good
Cool.
points.
Cool. Awesome. Max, thanks so much for being here. Anything else you want to say before you go?
No, it's been great chatting, and hopefully, I don't know, one personal mission of mine is to empower more founders, particularly more young founders, but more founders full stop, to work on really bold ideas which the world might tell you are stupid or impossible. And I hope that through sharing a little bit about fundraising, that starts to be at least a bit of a seed for some people. And then I'd also say for anyone in the earliest of stages looking to make a difference, to build something really bold and visionary, my door's always open. I want to help as many of those people as possible and do what I can to maybe shift their trajectory by 1 degree, which compounds over time.
Absolutely. Max, I love that, dude. You know, one thing I've learned in San Francisco is the people that make it here the most are focused on giving the most. And the more you focus on giving, the more you get. And here I'm talking to a dude that's probably going to change the world. And he's thinking mostly about how he can help other people the whole way. And I love that. Max, thank you so much for your time today, my brother. Appreciate you.
Thank you, Andrew.
And best of luck.
That has been another episode of the Funded Now What podcast with your host, Andrew Lee Miller. Brought to you by GrowthExpertz. If you liked the episode, please subscribe. And if you really liked it, please share with other founders and entrepreneurs. Thanks, and we'll see you in the next episode.